Elkhorn coral is an important reef-building coral in the Caribbean. The species has a complex structure with many branches which resemble that of elk antlers, hence, the common name. The branching structure creates habitat and shelter for many other reef species. There are two main types of corals, hard corals and soft corals. Hard corals, like Elkhorn coral and staghorn coral, grow in colonies and are often referred to as reef-building corals. Hard corals create skeletons out of calcium carbonate, a hard substance that eventually becomes rock. Elkhorn coral typically displays various colors, depending on several factors, including its health, the presence of symbiotic algae, and the environment. Healthy Elkhorn coral can appear brown or tan, especially in the presence of its symbiotic algae. These algae provide the coral with nutrients and a significant portion of its color, which can range from brownish to light beige. Elkhorn coral can sometimes have a light blue or green hue, which is often attributed to the presence of pigments in the coral tissue. This coloration may be more pronounced when the coral is stressed or expels its zooxanthellae during coral bleaching events. When Elkhorn coral expels its symbiotic zooxanthellae due to stress, it can turn white, a phenomenon known as coral bleaching. This is a sign of significant stress and can lead to coral mortality if the stress continues. Some Elkhorn corals exhibit vibrant purple or pink tips, which can be particularly striking. This coloration is often seen in healthy and actively growing parts of the coral. In some cases, Elkhorn coral may have yellow or gold hues, especially in its growing edges or when influenced by certain environmental conditions. Unhealthy or stressed Elkhorn coral may become covered in brownish-green algae, which can obscure its natural coloration and indicate deteriorating health. Due to their tree-like growth form, Elkhorn corals provide complex habitat for fish and other coral reef organisms. When Elkhorn corals are abundant, they provide shoreline protection from large waves and storms. Colonies are fast-growing, branches increase in length by 5 to 10 centimeters per year, with colonies reaching their maximum size in approximately 10 to 12 years. As a result of disease, pollution, coral bleaching, and storm damage, populations of Elkhorn corals have crashed. Throughout its range, it has become more and more rare, and scientists now consider it to be critically endangered, very highly vulnerable to extinction. Elkhorn coral is a species of coral that is particularly susceptible to a range of threats, many of which are linked to human activities and environmental changes. Climate change is one of the most significant threats to Elkhorn coral and all coral reefs worldwide. Rising sea temperatures lead to coral bleaching, where the coral expels the symbiotic algae that provide them with essential nutrients and color. This weakens the corals and makes them more susceptible to diseases and death. Increased carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere lead to ocean acidification, which can hinder the ability of corals to build and maintain their calcium carbonate skeletons. This makes them more vulnerable to physical damage and erosion. Elkhorn coral is susceptible to various diseases, including white band disease and white pox disease. These diseases can lead to rapid coral mortality and have caused significant declines in Elkhorn coral populations. Physical damage from storms and hurricanes can break apart Elkhorn coral colonies. While corals are adapted to withstand some level of natural disturbance, more frequent and severe storms due to climate change can exacerbate this threat. Pollution from runoff, sewage, and agricultural runoff can introduce excess nutrients and contaminants into the water. This can lead to increased algal growth, which can smother coral reefs, block sunlight, and compete with corals for resources. Overfishing of herbivorous fish species that help control algae on coral reefs can disrupt the delicate balance of the reef ecosystem. Algae can then outcompete corals for space and resources. Coastal development, such as the construction of resorts, marinas, and infrastructure, can result in sedimentation and pollution runoff into nearby coral reef areas, further degrading water quality and impacting coral health. High levels of tourism and recreational activities, such as snorkeling and diving, can lead to physical damage when people accidentally touch or kick corals. Anchor damage from boats can also harm coral reefs. Invasive species, such as the lionfish, can prey on reef organisms and disrupt the ecosystem balance, affecting Elkhorn coral and other species. Inadequate legal protections and enforcement can leave coral reefs vulnerable to various threats. Effective marine protected areas and conservation efforts are essential for safeguarding Elkhorn coral and other reef ecosystems. Elkhorn coral, like other coral species, is not a plant or an animal but a complex organism called a coral polyp. Coral polyps have a unique diet and rely on a mutualistic relationship with tiny algae called zooxanthellae for a significant portion of their nutrition. Elkhorn coral harbors symbiotic algae called zooxanthellae within its tissues. These zooxanthellae are photosynthetic microorganisms that use sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars through photosynthesis. The sugars produced by zooxanthellae serve as a primary food source for the coral. While zooxanthellae provide a significant portion of their energy, corals, including Elkhorn coral, are also opportunistic feeders. At night, when photosynthesis ceases, coral polyps extend their tentacles into the water to capture tiny, planktonic organisms, including zooplankton. The polyps have specialized cells called nematocysts that release stinging tentacles to immobilize and capture prey. This feeding on plankton supplements their diet with additional nutrients. Elkhorn coral and other corals also passively capture dissolved organic matter, fine particles, and detritus suspended in the water column. They produce mucus that helps trap these particles, which are then ingested by the coral polyps. It's important to note that the primary source of energy and nutrients for Elkhorn coral and other coral species comes from the photosynthesis of zooxanthellae. These algae not only provide corals with essential nutrients but also give them their vibrant colors. When corals are stressed or undergo bleaching due to factors like elevated sea temperatures, they may expel the zooxanthellae, leading to a loss of color and a reduction in their primary food source. This can weaken the corals and make them more susceptible to disease and other threats. Therefore, the health and survival of Elkhorn coral are closely tied to the well-being of their symbiotic zooxanthellae. Elkhorn coral, like many other coral species, primarily reproduces sexually through a process known as broadcast spawning. This is a synchronized event that typically occurs once a year, often triggered by environmental cues such as water temperature and moonlight. During this event, mature Elkhorn coral colonies release their gametes, eggs and sperm, into the water column simultaneously. Individual polyps within the coral colonies release either eggs or sperm into the surrounding water. In the water column, the released eggs and sperm mix, and fertilization occurs, producing fertilized eggs. The fertilized eggs develop into free-swimming larvae known as planulae. These planulae are tiny, ciliated, and transparent, allowing them to be carried by ocean currents. After several days to weeks of drifting in the water, the planulae settle onto a suitable substrate, such as rocks or other hard surfaces, and attach themselves. This marks the beginning of their transformation into a new coral colony. Elkhorn coral can also reproduce asexually through a process called fragmentation. This occurs when a portion of the coral colony breaks off due to physical damage or other factors. This broken piece, often referred to as a fragment or a coral cutting, has the potential to grow into a new colony under favorable conditions. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for even more viewing pleasure. Don't forget, like and comment. Feel free to share.